children in Gaza are starving.
Oh,
It's
no.
unbearable.
Oh,
David
no.
Lammy said Israel had an obligation to provide aid under international law, but not enough was getting in. In fact, the amount had fallen between January and February.
This is outrageous.
Oh, wait.
The continued restrictions on aid flows are completely unacceptable.
Andrew Mitchell acknowledged while some trucks were getting in, the amount of aid was woefully short of what was needed. He insisted the government was doing what it could, and the UK wanted an immediate pause to the conflict to get the hostages out and the aid in, which he hoped would lead to a sustainable ceasefire. The SNP's Brendan O'Hara has just returned from a trip to the Egyptian border, where he'd seen hundreds of lorry loads of food waiting for permission to go into Gaza.
Does he accept that the reason that people are starving to death just 44 miles from Tel Aviv, the distance between Glasgow and Edinburgh, is a direct result of the Israeli siege and the premeditated decision to cut off food supplies? And does he also accept that starving a civilian population to death is a war crime?
A Conservative, Andrew Percy, said it was incredible to him that some MPs could, as he put it, barely utter a word of criticism of the Hamas regime in Gaza, which had been accused of stealing and hoarding aid. And he continued,
In terms of the operation in Rafah, the Israeli government is very clear that hostages are being held there. Now, some of those hostages are being subjected to sexual violence and to other abuse. Are we saying to the Israeli government that they have no right to go in to seek to rescue those hostages or not?
and another Conservative, Michael Ellis, told MPs that reports from the area said
See,
Hamas
it's
will
really
visit
the Israeli government is
humanitarian aid to Tel Aviv.
This is part of a long pattern of prioritising fighters, using aid to produce rockets, and using construction materials to build hundreds of miles of tunnels for its terror activities. So no need to wait for another few years to do that.
Even then, Labour Iran was threatening to take war about their extended plan to attack Hamas.
We're talking as if famine is imminent, but the fact is that it's 27 months to watch and have already done it.
And she prepared for an immediate ceasefire.
We need to get the hostages out, we need to get aid in, and we need to get to stop.
Labour Iran wanted the UK to join international law to call that ceasefire, but Andrew Mitchell reckoned it was complicated.
The steelmaker owned by the Indian government said it made the decision after a deterioration of operational stability. It's more worrying news that the steel following the announcement last year that there are 3,000 layoffs. Peter Hughes is the Regional Secretary for Unite Wales. Good morning. How many employees will be affected by this latest announcement?
The latest announcement will probably be about 3 to 400. Obviously, it's a bit of a shock because we met with the company on Friday. For years, because of lack of investment, they made no indication that they're going to actually reach a closure on this.
But, I mean, they're saying it's a safety issue, right? And so the safety of your workers is surely paramount importance. So what have you got now?
What we're asking is making sure that these people are being employed within the site and there's no fiduciary illnesses. That they keep all the blast furnaces going, that they do report help to make sure the blast furnaces kept going until the end of it. I think when what was asked for an independent investigation into where the stability of the coal was, but all the managers are saying with a little bit of investment that coal was carrying going for a couple of years at least.
And so if you're, how confident are you that you're implementing the new measures?
Well, currently ISO 1000 is the site is definitely to see things blast furnaces and British steel production going, but obviously it's a very short-sighted plan where they're getting £500 million from the UK government to make 2,000 people redundant, and then for the next 4 years import steel from India and Poland while they build and do their own arc furnaces. It's really short-sighted, and our members are really angry about it.
And so, how would you describe the future of British Tata Steel today?
It's sort of knife edge. I think what they're doing, what they should be doing is waiting for the next general election where the Labour Party have announced that they're going to give £3 billion worth of aid for Green Steel within their first year of Parliament if they do get in, and we all know for vetted people that they could possibly get in. And well, when that's it, we don't believe that Tata are rushing that decision. And if they do get the money, there is a viable future for Port Talbot. Port Talbot could be green steel capital in Europe with the right investment and the right vision. But unfortunately, decisions are being made in India that affect people in South Wales.
Well, of course, Tata Steel defends its decisions. The government says that it is doing the best it can to support the industry as well.
Yes, of course. Everyone's going to defend their position at the moment, but when a government gives that amount of money, there should be job securities attached to that money. There should be making people redundant when the UK government is giving £500 million to taxpayers' money. It doesn't make sense, because a lot of that is actually going to go on redundancy payments to start with.
Youth Regional Secretary for Unite Wales, thank you.
7 minutes to 7. By market capitalisation, Microsoft is the richest company in the world, and on some measures, arguably in human history. As I write, it has a market cap of $3.1 trillion, comfortably ahead of Apple, with a mere $2.7 trillion. Microsoft's single biggest focus, as with so many tech companies right now, is AI, artificial intelligence, and it has just appointed a British 39-year-old of working class heritage who grew up on a council estate off the Caledonian Road in North London to run its AI division. He is Mustafa Suleyman, one of the co-founders of the DeepMind company. Zoe Kleiman, our technology expert, is on the line. And Zoe, I hope you can tell us a bit more about him, and also what his appointment by Microsoft tells us about where AI is heading.
Such an interesting move by Microsoft because it tells you a lot about the aim it makes. You know, you and I and everybody else is talking about it all the time. What we haven't quite seen yet is who is emerging as the leader, and Microsoft appointed Mustafa Suleyman, who is a massive British tech pioneer, as you said, and also has really made his name in this space already. And it's almost poached him from Google, because Suleyman was at Google before he joined Microsoft. He's been Team Google through and through. He sold his company DeepMind to Google in 2014. He's been such a vocal supporter. And here you've got Google, also an enormous tech giant, that on paper should absolutely be in pole position in this race. You know, it's got the infrastructure, it's got the money, it's got the world-class expertise, it's got access to huge amounts of data, and it's got this gigantic user base. And yet somehow Microsoft has totally stolen a march here and put itself far ahead in this sort of race to become the dominant power behind it.
It does, I mean, as you say, he founded DeepMind with Dennis Hassabis, who others will know as a fellow kind of working class North Londoner who's now kind of one of the main pioneers of AI around the world. It does show that this is one of those areas, like life sciences, this is one of those areas where Britain really does have the best in the world among our own people.
I think Britain has a long history of innovation, doesn't it? We are a country full of people with bright ideas, and ideas can go very far. What we seem to struggle with is the scale. You know, where is Britain's Google? Where is our tech giant? Where is Europe's tech giant?
Yes.
We've got no company worth billions of dollars here, and lots of the startups that I talk to, they've got big ambitions. They want to succeed. They want their company to be big, but ultimately they then want to be bought by a giant. They don't want to become a giant, and that, I think, is the cultural issue that we have here.
That's Mrs. Kalaski.
A different way of living in the US.
Who's your friend?
Suleyman,
It's Daniel.
proud
Is it Daniel?
British Londoner,
No.
set up his
That's
new
Afra.
company in Flex
Afra.
AI just 2 years ago in California, and he said to me at the time, it's just an easier working culture there. It's easier to A and B. How did
Interesting. Just worth saying briefly, he said to you back then, I remember you reporting it, and also in his book, The Coming Wave,
The rain is already starting to move southwards and eastwards, so it's going to brighten up from the northwest,
plenty of sunshine across Scotland and Northern Ireland come this afternoon. Temperatures here around 10 to 12 degrees. Now into tomorrow, it's going to be quite a windy and wet day across some northern and northwestern parts of the UK. And it's looking bright and dry and breezy towards the south. And then things turn a little colder into Friday.
Sarah, thank you so much. Next week on Radio 4, Rachel Botsman presents a new series.
Who do you trust and why? People build trust very differently.
They've built a relationship over a long period of time.
Throughout history, our relationship with trust has evolved, and each change has transformed how we live and work. These trust shifts have shaped everything from how we bank and trade goods to how we find and consume information. In a new series, I'll be exploring this intriguing history of trust and the trust challenges we may face in our near future.
Do you trust the people behind the technologies?
The Trust Shift with me, Rachel Botsman, on Radio 4 and BBC Sound, next Monday to Friday at 1:45. Coming up in the next hour, the latest from inside Sudan as the BBC gets rare access to the front line of the war raging there. Sometimes when we got out of our house, we found dead bodies nearby our door. It's possible that anyone who doesn't have anything to do with this war and just walking by in the street gets killed.
You're listening to BBC Radio 4 with Katya Adler and Amol Raj. It's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 20th of March. The headlines this morning. A ban on a number of powerful synthetic drugs has come into force, with experts warning the authorities that they need to act faster to establish the scale of the problem. The Public Spending Watchdog has said the Home Office's alternative plans to house asylum seekers will cost tens of millions of pounds more than hotels. An investigation has reportedly begun into claims that at least one member of staff at a private London hospital tried to access the Princess of Wales medical records. BBC News is read by Jane Stevens.
The government has banned 15 powerful synthetic opioids, which the Home Office has described as highly addictive and incredibly dangerous. Most of the substances involved are super-strength street drugs known as nitazines. There's been more than 100 deaths in the UK linked to nitazines since last summer, and drug experts say the government needs to do more to establish the extent of the problem. Navdeep Johar reports.
Nitazines can be hundreds of times stronger than heroin. The National Crime Agency says they're produced in illicit labs in China and brought into the UK through the coast. It's believed that a crackdown on heroin production in Afghanistan has led to a rise in synthetic opioids here. Experts the BBC spoken to say the authorities have not acted fast enough to track non-fatal overdoses involving nitazines, which could help to predict and prevent deaths. Currently, there is no national tracking system. Dr. Judith Gates, a drug expert who collects fatal overdose data in Birmingham, says improving the sharing of information could help reduce deaths.
Nitazines are a whole new world. We've seen nothing like this. I could so tempted to know that. Listen, because of the
Of the 15 synthetic opioids that have been made Class A drugs, 14 of them are nitazines. The Department of Health says it has a national surveillance system in place to collect information on the nature and location of new types of drug use, and that work is ongoing to improve it.
The Public Spending Watchdog National Audit Office says government plans to house asylum seekers at former military bases and barges will cost tens of millions of pounds more than using hotels. Ministers say the figures include set-up costs and says it's better value to continue with the sites. Labour described the findings as staggering. Editor Mark Hastings reports.
The Home Office should reflect on lessons learned. The head of the National Audit Office, Gareth Davis, concludes in his assessment of the department's asylum accommodation strategy. And the Home Office holds its hands up, rating its own targets to save money by moving asylum seekers out of hotels and into alternative accommodation as undeliverable. Officials in the department now estimate the overall costs of housing migrants on the Billy Stockholm barge and former RAF bases will be £46 million more than using hotels over the same period. The NAO suggests government demands for speed increase the risk of wasting public money. £250 million of contracts were awarded without a proper competitive process. At least £3.4 million was spent reserving barges and preparing a military base which won't be used. The Home Office told the NAO the experience had been valuable because it now has a more realistic idea of the time, costs and risks involved.
Thereby, they're giving her backing to get patients to change the asylum system. The integration of refugees and independent refugees for the last 2 years in Indonesia. It's made 2 main recommendations: limited English language courses for new arrivals and enhancement to 6 months. The UK's largest delivery of aid to Gaza is cross-border distributed by the Refugee Programme. In 2010, South 25 flour. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is arriving in Saudi City in Jeddah to talk to Arab leaders on a long-term multi-year plan for government and secure Gaza. This is trying to secure a deal to bring Palestinian Authority back into the territory for the first time since it came out in Hamas 17 years ago. A lot of parties, including Israel, need to pursue a two-state solution to secure peace in the region. An investigation has reportedly found that a clinic in London was treating the business in Wales. The clinic's staff tried to access her private medical records. The Daily Mirror alleges at least one staff member at the London clinic, Ireland, is involved. Sam James reports.
Princess of Wales spent 13 nights at the private London clinic in January after undergoing abdominal surgery. The Royal officials said at the time that she wanted her personal medical information to remain private. But this morning's Mirror is reporting that at least one member of staff tried to access her medical notes without permission while she was being treated. The data protection watchdog, the Information Commissioner's Office, said it had received a report of a breach and was assessing the information. Kensington Palace said it was a matter for the London clinic. The clinic told the Mirror, "We firmly believe that all our patients, no matter their status, deserve total privacy and confidentiality." The allegations will come as another blow to the royal family, who have faced weeks of online speculation and conspiracy theories about Catherine's health during her continued absence from public engagements.
A report has warned that the shortage of teachers in England has reached a critical state. The Independent National Foundation for Education Research says teaching is struggling to compete with other graduate jobs. The Department for Education says there are now more teachers than ever. It's offering bursaries of up to £30,000 to attract the brightest and the best in subject areas where there are shortages. Here's our education editor, Brahmin Jeffers.
The numbers starting training to teach maths, physics, computing, RE and languages are already far below what the government says are needed. This report says 10 out of 17 secondary subjects probably won't recruit enough trainees next year, and the crisis in recruiting and retaining teachers is a substantial risk to pupils' education. It warns teaching is struggling to compete with many other graduate jobs where working partly or entirely from home is now routine. The NFER says a pay rise of at least 3.1% is needed, with a further 1.8% to compensate for the fact teachers have to be present in school every day. But it says workload is as much a factor as pay, with pupil behaviour and mental health struggles contributing to teachers working more hours.
Dawn Devlin was formally nominated as the First Minister of Wales later today. He narrowly won the Welsh Labour leadership contest to succeed Mark Drakeford, who's stepping down after more than 5 years in the post. With our Wales correspondent, Hal Griffith.
After winning the support of his party by the slenderest of margins, Vaughan Gething now faces what should be a more procedural vote in the Senedd. Barring last-minute surprises, he'll be nominated as First Minister.
She's a fantastic Spanish chef, but you wouldn't say that was all, like high temperature gastronomy, white tablecloth, silent room. It's a fabulous restaurant, really buzzy, with delicious, consistently beautiful food.
You make me want to go there right now. Manon, what would you say that there is a difference? Can one say there is, or is it too crass, that there is a different dynamic in the kitchen, never mind a different output when it is run at a high level by a woman?
I think there should be no difference between kitchen run by women and kitchen run by men. The fact is most of the times women are like more sensible with the fact that They don't want like a lot of pressure, and they don't want like beating the competition. But I think it's the way that we teach women to be, and the idea is to change this and to show that it's possible to be at the in the competition of Michelin star or just at this level. Without being in like this kind of competition, you know, it's not the fact in my restaurant that we try to be in a big level of cuisine and also in excellence in the restaurant, but not to be like in the pressure that we can feel in this kind of restaurants like usually, and that I think most of the women are like that these women don't want in their kitchen. So the idea is to have like a new way of cooking, but with and keep you know the excellence.
So high on food excellence, low on stress in the kitchen.
Exactly.
Manon, Chloe, thank you very much indeed, and thanks to you as well, Angela.
And now it's 28 minutes past 8 o'clock. He's here with us for
Thank you very much. Headlines at first. Chelsea women were impressive in Champions League qualifying match and lost the with a 3-0 win at Ajax. The first half was going to give Emma Hayes' side a comfortable lead ahead of the second fixture on Wednesday. 18-year-old has been called up to the England squad for the first time. Originally named in the under-21s, Mabel has now been promoted to the senior squad for England's friendly games against Brazil and Belgium, their final matches. Gareth Southgate named his squad for Euro 2024. And the draft for the cricket competition, the 100, takes place today at the Shard in London. A setting for a tournament that had its detractors when it started, but it's building a fan base amongst its audience that comes after 18 to 29-year-olds and many even younger fans too. Let's meet Matt Warner, cricket journalist with Cricket Info. Morning, Matt. The draft is quite an American concept. Does it work in the same way with cricket?
Morning. Yeah, it's was held as the first of its kind in British ball when it first happened in 2019, and it's pretty similar to what you might see in the NFL. Each team has a certain number of contracts that they can offer and certain salary bands. Bill and Bob and they can tonight. The main focus this evening is on the top pick in the men's draft. Andrew Flintoff was obviously England's hero in the 2005 Ashes, head coach of Northern Superchargers, who are based in Helican and Leeds. Because they finished bottom in the men's competition last season, they will have the first pick. But of course, the Cats are likely to sign Nicholas Pooran, who's the keeper batsman from the West Indies, but plenty of alternatives out there like David Warner and England's Jason Boy as well.
Yeah, the big names evolved along the way. This is a 100-ball cricket tournament, as the name says, in its 4th year. It has, though, as I mentioned, found its audience amongst younger people, women, families going off to school. How have they managed that?
Well, as you said earlier, it's absolutely fair to say that the way the tournament was launched initially sort of alienated plenty of cricket fans. Lots of people would still argue it wasn't necessary and that the ECB could have invested more in the existing competitions that they have, but the sport has transformed a lot in the last 20 years with the launch of T20 cricket and then particularly the Indian Premier League in 2008. And yeah, the ECB have really had the 100 as a big part of their strategy to try and change the way the sport is seen by the British public and open it up to people who have interested in the idea of attending cricket matches recently. So last year, for example, Manchester Originals said that 48% of their ticket buyers for match days at Old Trafford had never been to a cricket match in the UK before. And they've really got about trying to engage non-traditional cricket watching audiences as they've been described, particularly in terms of getting women to buy tickets and under 18s.
Yeah, 30% of the ticket sales were female last year, which is another big statistic for cricket. And research shows in this country, I think you generally have chosen a sport to follow the rest of your life by the age of 14. If you don't want to say you're 26, you're in the bracket that cricket wants to find and retain as an audience. Is there much crossover now with county cricket, test cricket, some of those formats that maybe originally had an old audience?
Well, certainly I think test cricket has a problem in the UK in that it's because of the fact that tickets are so expensive. You can often be paying over £100 to go and watch the test cricket. That means that it is difficult to transfer those tickets from the 100, which is significantly cheaper, into international cricket. But the ECB are definitely trying and arguably could do more to try and cross-promote test cricket and international cricket through the 100. but obviously the involvement of big name players, particularly those who have played for the England men's test team, as we saw last year, most of them were involved in the 100, so using them as a sort of a vehicle to get people engaged in the game. The hope is that they then start following international cricket, and cricket can diversify its fan base somewhat.
Yeah, very interesting. Matt Roller from Cricket Show, thank you very much. Racing tips to finish this morning. Market raising 4:05. Number 6 was Rocco Royale. Paid up 4.25. Number 7, Yale. Thanks, Kathy. Now with a look ahead to 9 o'clock. 2024
is the year of election. According to one estimate, just under 50% of all the people on Earth live in countries where by December 31st there will have been a national vote. To mark this moment, we're broadcasting 3 special programs. In the final one, we're looking at South Africa, whose first post-apartheid election took place exactly 30 years ago, and where the ANC has dominated ever since. But could this be the year all that changes? What might that mean? The briefing of the year of elections with me, David Rolovich, this morning at 9 on Radio 4 from BBC Sounds. Quick look at the weather. Cloudy today with rain clearing eastwards, drier and brighter to the southeast.
You're listening to Today on Radio 4 with Amal Rajan and Kasia Adler. It is 27 minutes to 9 and time for a summary of the news from Jason. The Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has said a sharp fall in inflation sets the scene for better economic conditions. The rate of inflation dropped to 3.4% in the year to February, down from 4% in January, its lowest level for more than 2 years. The government has banned 15 powerful synthetic opioids, some of which are more powerful than heroin. Most of the banned substances are known as nicotines. They're linked to more than 100 deaths in the UK since last summer. France lead for National Police Chief Council Richard Lewis told us that such synthetic drugs were a small but growing problem in the UK. The Independent National Foundation for Education Research says teaching is struggling to compete with other graduate jobs. A report warns that the shortage of teachers in England has reached a critical state. Education says there are now more teachers than ever before. Paul Gething is due to be formally nominated as the new First Minister of Wales later today. Mark Drakeford, who stepped down after 5 years in the role. Thanks, Jane. It is 26 minutes to 9. Inflation has fallen to its lowest level in 2.5 years. The consumer price index has slowed to 3.4% in February. That's down from January's 4%. A sign that prices rose at a slower rate last month. It's the lowest since September 2021 and a slightly larger fall than the city expected, data from the Office for National Statistics shows. Well, the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt welcomed the news warmly this morning.
As inflation gets closer to its target, that opens the door for the Bank of England to consider bringing down interest rates. That brings down mortgage rates. That makes a very big difference. It's far too early to know whether we'll have another fiscal event before the election. But what I would say is that what you can see is the difficult decisions the government has taken over the last year.
Commissioner Chancellor Rachel Reeves said prices are still high despite the latest fall in inflation. Dr. Sushil Wadhwani is an economist and former Bank of England policymaker. Good morning.
Good morning, Catherine.
So this fall in inflation is slightly larger than expected, but is the Chancellor right to be so optimistic? I mean, obviously the government is keen for this to happen, but it promised to get inflation down.
The key thing to remember is that a significant reason inflation fell this month is because food price inflation was much lower. When I appeared on your program about a year ago, food price inflation was running at about 19%. This month it's only running at 5%. So just through pure arithmetic, inflation was going to fall. It was running at 7% last month. So big contributors, lower food price and lower energy price inflation. Now these favorable tailwinds are going to continue to exert a downward pressure on the inflation rate in the coming period. So I wouldn't be at all surprised. Headline inflation is actually quite close to target, so around 2%. If not in 2 months' maybe in 3 months' time.
Okay, 2 to 3 months time down to 2%. That's the Bank of England's target. So does this downward trend make an interest rate cut more likely? I mean, at the moment, interest rates are at a 16-year high, aren't they? I mean, the Bank of England meets to discuss this tomorrow.
So I think it's most unlikely that the bank will do anything tomorrow. And the bank is conscious that although headline inflation is coming down nicely back to target, the underlying domestically generated inflation is still uncomfortably high. So if you look at services inflation, which tends to be largely domestically generated, unlike food or energy prices which are set in global markets, services inflation is still running at 6%, which is uncomfortably high for the Bank of England. Having said that, the financial markets expect the bank to have cut interest rates 3 times in 0.25% decrements over the balance of the year. So financial markets expect interest rates to have fallen from 5.25% to 4.5% by year end. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me, given that lower headline inflation is likely to bring wage increases down, and then services inflation should decelerate.
So you're predicting that those interest rates at least will go down at least a bit by the end of the year. Of course, that's important for everybody paying a mortgage, something to hope for. Dr. Sushil Wadhwani, economist and former Bank of England policymaker. Thank you.
22 minutes to 9. Just over a decade ago, Tristan Harris was working as a design ethicist at Google. He wrote a paper featuring 141 slides with the title "A Call to Minimize Distraction and Respect Users' Attention." He's worried simply that our relationship with technology was going badly wrong. Rather than liberating us to focus on what makes being human special and valuable, it undermined our autonomy, concentrated too much power in too few hands, and damaged the sacred bonds that give our lives meaning. He set up the Centre for Humane Technology, which now spends plenty of time warning the world not just about the dangers of social media and smartphones, but artificial intelligence. So from the States, let's come into today's studio. Tristan, good morning. Good to see you. Let's just go briefly to that origin story. I'm familiar with it, so it's important. A lot of people won't be. They won't know that you've been the various time lists of the 100 most powerful people in technology and so forth. Why did you need Google?
Yeah, well, I was at Google, and this is in 2013, and what I saw was that we were going to have a train wreck over the next 10 years if we allowed this perverse incentive in technology to continue. That perverse incentive was the race for attention. That we're seeing at Google, it wasn't that Google itself was the problem, it was that Google was hosting this attention economy, and that there's only so much human attention out there, and smartphones opened up this whole new real estate of human attention to reach people 24/7, and social media companies were taught to maximize engagement time. So even the BBC has to maximize engagement, right? But not in a way that you're hooked up to a stock price and a $1 trillion market valuation like TikTok or Facebook. And so what I was trying to point out was that if we don't stop the race for attention, that's going to create a race to the bottom of the brainstem to a more addictive, distracted, polarized, sexualized society because of the success of that business model of engagement.
Let's give us a sense of how that incentives work in practice. I know you've often talked about this example of YouTube, where YouTube created in 2004, is something like over 2.5 billion people use YouTube. Just give us a sense of how much time they spend on it, and how much of YouTube isn't what people have searched for, but what the algorithms of YouTube there to grab your attention throw at you.
Yeah, that's right. I think the vast majority of YouTube traffic is recommendations, but just like TikTok as well, for those who use TikTok. And when you use YouTube or TikTok, you basically have a supercomputer pointed at your brainstem. And so behind that sheet of glass, when you swipe up on your fingers to get the next video, you have the biggest supercomputer in the world pointed at your brain to calculate which video is most likely to keep you watching. And so people say, okay, so what's the big deal? If it's recommending videos that I like or that I find engaging, why should we consider that harmful? But because it's personalizing that next video for every person, it just breaks shared reality. Because now everybody gets their own bespoke engaged reality. The teen girl can start with a dieting video, the next video will be anorexia videos. Anorexia videos are good. And so the net result of this is that we allow this to go to more politically outraged, divisive society everywhere. Democracies, as you mentioned earlier, year of sort of a super election of democracies in 2024, I believe is the case that 2 billion people are going to have democratic elections.
More than half of humanity, yeah.
More than half of humanity. And at the same time that we have the biggest referendum on democracy, we have all these AI tools that allow us to supercharge all the harms of social media, including disinformation and fake news.
I'm very keen to talk to you about AI and young people. Just on your point about that classic example, if you go searching for dietary advice, you end up with pictures of anorexia. I know, because I put this to those various companies, that they would say, Google would say, Facebook would say, Facebook's subsidiaries, Instagram and so on, that they've taken very extensive measures to try to keep people away from that kind of harmful content, away from self-harm, which is an issue we often talk about on this program. Do you think they've had any success doing that?
Oh, they've definitely made huge investments in this, especially after we started raising concerns about this about 5 years ago. But you have to imagine that this algorithm, this recommendation system, was running for 10 years unmitigated for a long time. 10 years is a lot of damage to sort of really divide the population. And also, TikTok is really the most used app now globally.
Over a billion.
Yeah, over a billion. And one thing that Western countries should ask is, during the Cold War, would you have allowed the Soviet Union to control television programming for the entire Western world? Right? And I think that it's really interesting to think about a Chinese Communist Party influenced company that is setting the dials for what 2 billion people around the world see going into the next election. So it's not just that, let's say in the 1960s, you were allowing Russia to define television programming for the US and the UK. You're allowing them to run television programming going into your #1 election, right? So that is a really dangerous situation, and that's why there's been momentum in the US recently behind this TikTok ban.
It's interesting. I was going to say, TikTok obviously, they deny that they're Chinese owned, but I note you use the word Chinese influenced, and as you say, in Washington, they're taking considerable measures. So let's turn to young people. What does the evidence show about the impact of smartphones and social media on young minds?
Yeah, this is all very predictable back in the day, but certainly shortening attention spans. Yeah, well, I mean, there's a famous quote by Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's business partner, who said, "If you show me the incentive, I will show you the outcome." And when you are racing for attention, if I show you short sound bites that are moving really fast, am I going to outcompete my competitor who's showing you 30-minute videos only? Right? And the short sound bites are going to work way better. So shortening attention spans are going to be rewarded everywhere. That's happening to young people, but it's also happening to us. Jonathan Haidt, the author, has a new book out that I'm going to be speaking with him actually in a month in San Francisco, called The Anxious Generation. And it really outlines all of the evidence. For anybody whoever had a doubt or says, I'm not sure the science is really clear, you just put all of it together in a very clean, efficient format.
He's a brilliant author. We've had him on the radio for quite a lot. He wrote The Righteous Mind, which a lot of people would know. But his big interest is charting the rise of Instagram, which he thinks is the main issue, and the rise of anxiety and depression amongst teenage girls in America.
That's right. Anxiety, depression, self-harm, body image issues, body dysmorphia. But again, these are all predictable because as the apps are racing for attention, the ones that add beautification filters that make you look better start to outcompete the apps that don't. So Snapchat has beautification filters. The other ones have to add it too. TikTok was found to have invisibly added a 5% more beautiful beautification filter without even asking the user's consent. Because it's kind of like mirror, mirror on the wall, whichever one makes me look past the wall, I'll use it more in the I don't even know that it's sort of influencing me. I like things in because
I should say, Jonathan Haidt, we'll speak to Jonathan Haidt later this week. AI takes all this to a new level, and we often hear about potential of AI. Isn't one of the defining features of artificial intelligence just the sheer speed of development? And humanity takes time to absorb new technologies, right? We need time to make sense of them. And AI, in this respect, does seem to have, to quote a phrase, a mind of its own.
That's right. Yeah, AI is about to supercharge the issues that we saw with social media. So if you think about social media as first contact with a curation AI, all it's doing is curating which video, post, or tweet you see when you swipe your finger up, right, to scroll the screen. And that was enough to sort of decline democracies around the world, to screw up mental health for kids, to really distort and warp society. And now with second contact with AI, it's this generative AI. It's not curating what we see; it's able to generate text,
coming up with new ideas and
new decisions, new ideas, generate scientific hypotheses, generate market analysis. You can use AI to generate content. And then what that allows you to do is deep fake things. You can, going into election, you can have superhuman persuasion and speech. You can say, given a person living in this, part of society with this demographics and this income, what would be a motivating message for them? And I can do superhuman persuasion with more people. You can also generate audio, right? I can take 5 seconds, 10 seconds of your voice, and then I can start to sort of create a fake version of you and start talking to your bank. This is going to supercharge many of the other issues that we've seen with social media. And as you said, if the incentive predicts the outcome, and in social media the incentive was engagement, the incentive with this next round of AI is the race to roll out. Who can roll out their AI faster than the other guy? And what that means is they're racing as fast as possible, which means they throw safety out the window. It's not that people don't care about safety, it's that they're not able to sort of spend the time on it if their competitors are just releasing stuff as fast as possible. It's both the US-China race, but it's also a sort of Western companies race between each other.
We've always requested to talk to you about it. Tristan Harris, co-founder and executive director of the Centre for Humane Technology. Thank you for coming to see us.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's 13 minutes to 9, excuse me. Yesterday we spoke at length on the programme about the first ever sentencing for the new crime of cyberflashing in the UK. Registered sex offender Nicholas Hawkes sent also unsolicited photos to a woman. She took screenshots of the WhatsApp image, reported them to the police that same day. Now, we had a big response from our listeners, from all of you on the issue. So today we're speaking to Detective Chief Superintendent Andy Waldie, the head of the Crime and Public Protection Command at Essex Police, which led the case. And good morning to you.
Good morning.
And also to Lisa Squire, mother of Libby Squire, a student at Hull University who was murdered in 2019 after she'd been a victim of indecent exposure. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And so sorry about the loss of your daughter. Detective Chief Superintendent, first of all, I mean, how far can this new law go in combating something that, as we heard on the programme yesterday, it's become so widespread, so normalised?
Thank you. I mean, this case, during this conviction, for me, gives a clear message to society, and particularly the groups in society, overwhelmingly males, that think that sending this type of image unsolicited to women and girls is banter or funny. It is not. It is a criminal offence, and policing, will track you down. It will arrest you, will put you before the court, and if convicted, you will become a registered sex offender. It is not banter. It is, and you heard yesterday, your listeners, the effect that this type of behaviour has on women. It causes upset, intimidation, it causes fear of sexual violence, and it's completely unacceptable.
In this case, though, Nicholas Hawkes, I mean, he admitted what he'd done and he was convicted. Isn't it more difficult when, someone might dismiss it, as you said, it's banter. We heard from Professor Claire McLean yesterday. She said there's a hard threshold for prosecutors to prove a crime. They've got to prove that a defendant intended to cause harm, distress, or humiliation.
Yes, it can be difficult, but what I would say is that the teams in Essex Police and policing across the country, if they identify risks like we did with Nicholas Hawkes, this male had been convicted in November last year of indecent exposure in a park and sexual assault on children. He then fell to my specialist team, which is called the Management of Sexual and Violent Offenders, and these are a dedicated team of officers and police staff who manage the risk posed by these dangerous individuals. And when they identify that an individual like Hawkes is, sending these completely unacceptable images to women and girls, they will track you down, and they will arrest you, and they will put you before the court and secure convictions. Technology is always advancing, and it is difficult for us to work at pace up with those technological advances, which we were discussing just before this piece. But what I would say again is the way in dealing with deepfakes and the technology that allows offenders to think that they can take part in this behaviour and remain undetected.
Thank you. Lisa Squire, what's your reaction to that? Are you reassured, or are you worried that there are loopholes, like an offender airdrops an image, for example?
I am quite reassured. I think any offender who sends predominantly a female an unsolicited picture is looking for a reaction, and whether they think it's going to intimidate the recipient or not is almost irrelevant, because it does scare whatever their motive behind doing it, it's not going to be one that is a positive motive, in my opinion. And I was really encouraged yesterday when I heard about the conviction, having to prove whether somebody is meaning to do harm. I think that's quite evident in the person who's received it.
And do you feel in the legislation briefly that there is a recognition that offences that in the past, such as slashing, for example, that were sometimes dismissed and now realised as serious as we were hearing yesterday, they can be a precursor to much more serious crimes?
Yes. I mean, I've been talking about this for the best part of 3 or 4 years now. Certainly my daughter's case. Prolific non-contract sex offender. So they confirmed that he couldn't have been waving any more red flags than he was. And the fact that these things are now being seen as serious offences is really good.
Lisa Squire, thank you so much, and thank you also to you, Detective Superintendent Andy Morgan.
It's 8 minutes to 9, and just to say for those interested in what the ex-Googler Tristan Harris was saying just a moment ago, the studio interviewed the American author that you mentioned, Jonathan Haidt, that's going to run on Monday, and that's about the anxious generation. Right then, Tony Sewell is the educational consultant who chaired the 2021 Commission on Race and Ethnics.
喺我送完哥哥翻工嗰陣，心同喺度發條題喺度，佢叫我，即係我已經喺 Habitat 嗰度捐翻出嚟，但係跟住佢叫我要轉咗咯，即係佢唔要我行 UA 嗰度，佢要我行翻轉頭咯。跟住咧，你唔理佢？梗係唔理佢啦。佢要我行翻轉頭，跟住唔知點樣，可能係咁樣行翻嚟。我話呢度做咩事？你想點走啊？唔知。總之我搭3左右翻到。嚇？搭3左右翻到。
Around the fact that the world is stacked against us. I'm not denying any reality of racism, but listen, there's a wonderful story about our experience that hasn't been told, and some irony in it as well.
我話佢到時買咗嗰個 Jayton High Road 嗰度，佢想整窗簾啊嘛，跟住佢揾咗間窗簾公司咧，3間房，即係3房廳，跟住然之後 landing 一個窗簾，同埋廚房，鋪2,000幾個。開咗成。但係英國即係有個英國人，即係有鬼佬㗎嘛，佢就覺得差唔多咯。佢話咩？即係佢覺得差唔多咯。
Headlines and the tenor of some of the coverage. Obviously you've got coverage that is very positive and negative, but from those who were critical.
跟住佢話佢嗰個廳嗰個窗咧，即係佢 garden 嗰個咧，就係好似佢又唔算 extension， 但係有少少突咗出去，即係菱形咁樣嘅個窗，唔係或者一個長方形啫嘛。跟住佢俾張 group 我睇啊嘛，跟住我話咦佢分。因為我話點解你個廳會有5個窗咁多嘅咧咁樣？我唔中意呢啲人睇，我中意呢啲人。咁你要行就行啦。嗰日我咪話死都有架車係等到行到嚟呢一個位佢先至踩住條線咁樣過嚟。咁我以為佢真係一個好守規矩嘅人，但係佢行到嗰度超速。跟住我就話：咦，點解你個廳會有5個窗咁多嘅？跟住原來佢係呢度一個錢，即係可能100幾磅啊嘛。呢度有100幾磅，即係呢個窗個簾100幾磅，呢個窗個簾100幾磅，跟住再前面嗰個大嗰個就400幾磅。跟住我話：你淨係聽嗰個窗都700幾磅，嗰個窗。
Data, we were driven by that. And so what happened was that I think in many ways people just thought we were populating the reality of racism, and we weren't. We didn't acknowledge that racism exists. And I don't know where it came from, but somebody almost was saying that we said in a report that we denied.
咁陣間點啊？邊個嚟㗎？我過嚟。嚇？有 ATM。
我過嚟
呢間嘢好鬼貴，我打俾你啊。你幾你
好咩？
我打俾你話俾你聽，如果架車泳的車係 ready， 跟住你話俾我聽你幾點得閒嚟車我去攞翻架車。就係咁啦，拜拜。
the Brixton riots, you've seen how police have tried to reform when there's pretty clear evidence that police were, if not targeting black people were disproportionately affected. And there are a lot of young people, and I know you know these people because you worked with them for decades, but there are a lot of young people, not just in big cities, but outside of big cities, who are black and who think that they are likely to be unfairly discriminated against, not just a disparity, but discriminated against by police officers, and they would say the numbers support them.
And you know what, I agree with that, and let's point to the book as well, Flat Success, because on the, at the end of there, what we do is we remind people of the more than 25 recommendations that we put in there to do with policing, to do with that specific issue. So that you can run the two things together. You can say that there are structural issues that are there in the police, in employment, that need to be addressed. However, at the same time, you have to look at the thing, its complexity. It's not really running all the groups in the same way.
And here's another thing that some of the critics took against, which is basically underplaying the fact that racism is still more prevalent in Britain than Europe. And you and I are speaking shortly after the lead story emerges across the country, not just on the BBC but elsewhere, about the fact that a major donor to the Tory party said things about Diane Abbott, which the BBC hasn't independently verified, but which the Guardian claims basically amounts to something that the Prime Minister now says is racist and wrong. You know, we have a major Conservative Party donor saying Diane Abbott made him want to hate all black women and that she should be shot. Isn't that, a lot of people listening to you now, Tony, would say, an indication that this country still has a hell of a long way to go when it comes to racial stereotypes?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. The report doesn't shy away from that. What it does say is that, in fact, we can have these incidences, issues of racism, and overt racism is wrong, and we state that quite clearly in the report. However, the idea that the world, Britain, is stacked up against you, especially in a situation where, in fact, the numbers are showing the reverse, in fact, in education particularly, that in fact it's the other way around. That's the issue.
Dr. Tony Sewell, author of Black Success, The Surprising Truth. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
That is it from us today. Our editors were Hannah Wilkinson and Victoria Gardner. Studio director was Lee Wilson. We've had a really terrific big response to last week's edition of the Today podcast, which was this deep dive into the trends, particularly the right of politics. So this week we're looking at the left, and with Nick on holiday, we broke in that shy, retiring wallflower and fellow podcaster Alistair Campbell. That's going to go live on BBC Sounds around about this time tomorrow. Hope you have a wonderful day. The briefing room's up next.
At 9 o'clock, the latest figures show there's been a further slowdown in the rate at which prices are increasing. This statistic says annual inflation fell from 4% in January to 3.4% in February.
We also saw the restaurant and hotel rates fall back as well, and then no surprise, those are some of the partly offsetting some uptick in tourism prices in the last month. But I think the general trend continues to be strong.
Israel says its forces have killed about 90 gunmen during the raid on the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. Authorities said they found weapons and arrested more than 160 people. The UK's biggest train maker, Alstom, has warned that thousands of jobs are at risk at its plant in Derby. Production of new stuff is almost finished, and there's an 18-month gap until the next order. The government says it's in contact with Alstom and wants to secure future for rail manufacturing in Derby. The government has banned 15 powerful synthetic opiates that have been linked to more than 100 UK deaths since last summer. There's been street drugs known as missus can be many times stronger than heroin. The Public Spending Watchdog, the National Audit Office, has told the government that its plans to boost salaries to former military bases and converted barges will cost tens of millions of pounds more in
shop on the Auckland island of Sandal with more Easter eggs than there are inhabitants. And I just thought if you're getting 80 eggs, then you can have BBC News.
This is BBC Radio 4. Last month, Women's Hour spoke to the leader of the Baby Loss and Bereavement charity, the Mariposa Trust, about the campaign for baby loss certificates. They've now been introduced in England for parents who've lost a baby before 24 weeks of pregnancy. And later this morning, Emma Barnes will tell her own story. It speaks to a woman who's decided it's not for her, and another who applied straight away and has received 4 baby loss certificates. Emma will be here with Women's Hour just after 10. But now on Radio 4, here's Dave Barone with the briefing note.
We're focusing on South Africa. It's 30 years since the African National Congress, led back then by Nelson Mandela, first won power. It's had a majority of parliament ever since, but this could well be different. Also, this is the time of the ruling party goes well or bad for South Africa. But here's our briefing. We'll find out. To begin with, I want to understand how South Africa's democracy works and what the polls are saying about the forthcoming election. David Everett is professor at the Vip School of Governance in Johannesburg. David Everett, let me start by asking you, how many people in South Africa are entitled to vote?
Anyone who is age 18 and above and registered is entitled to vote. Currently, it's around 38 million people.
And how many constituencies? Is it first past the post in each constituency?
Sadly not. We have a proportional representation of a party list. So as many votes as any party gets, that translates into a number of elected MPs, but we don't have constituencies, which means we don't have a power of people, but it's a PLC.
Right, so there's no link between MPs and PLC. No. Right, before we talk about what the polls are indicating for this election, can we just go back to the first post-apartheid election 30 years ago? What level of support was the African National Congress, the ANC, receive back then?
ANC got 62%.
And what's happened to the level of support for the ANC in the 30 years since then?
It rose steadily from there, but a huge switch in the election of the Parliament report that President Roosevelt incoming president in 2004. They got 69.7 to 47%. So that's ANC that is absolute dominant. And after he left and said the war down the president, he triumphed second there and had Eric Holmes stuff.
And roughly, what was the result of the last election?
The ANC got 54.
So it went down to 54%. And what are the polls indicating now?
All the polls that I've seen, of course, the polls but every poll is going to be below 50% for the first time.
You said some polls more reliable than others.
their mindset. They currently run the reputation of the Aztec opposition, and they are in coalition government in a number of cities around the country. And after them comes the Economic Freedom Party, EFF. They've been around for a lot less, but they're the only party that is growing. Not by leaps and bounds, but they're approaching double figures when they were single figures, and we're expecting to be around somewhere between 14 and 15% nationally on election day.
Could you explain to me what the Democratic Alliance and the Republican Party is actually?
The Democratic Alliance is a sort of conservative liberal party, so they're very much free marketeers. They've taken up quite a lot of the anti-wokeism stuff for America, which is odd because it's not very relevant to South Africa, but they're very much put a kind of we can govern, ideology doesn't matter, we can manage, trust us. The Economic Freedom Party, the EFF, has a rather different, and some may say slightly more populist approach. They call for land expropriation without compensation, and a whole range of policies that are basically aimed at advancing African nationalism and its demands across the board and fairly rapidly. They see themselves in a way as doing the job that the ANC did not do in America.
Firstly, who leads this? Who gets expropriated?
Who leads it is Julius Malema, who leads the ANC against the ANC when he got kicked out. He had formed the EFF, and that's what he say. Who would get expropriated is exceptionally unclear. It was also ANC policy, and as I said, any standing government with 7% of the popular vote massive living nothing close to at all. And every time this issue of land expropriation gets raised, it's normally in the context of we must change the constitution. And all the lawyers immediately decide that we range to expropriate under certain conditions. So at this point, it's more a slogan than a very carefully developed policy. But I do very well trying to give you a detailed answer because I'm not sure anyone.
There's also the former president Jacob Zuma. What's he up to?
Yeah, there is a former president Jacob Zuma who is up to something. He's launched a party called Potawatomi. Potawatomi was the ANC arm wing in exile in the Battle of Rage, of which Jacob Zuma, ironically, is not a member, but he registered the party some months ago with one of his colleagues. Called the Potawatomi as well, or MK for short. It really came on all guns blazing in December, so even the polls that people are already reading, they missed it because it wasn't in existence when they were in field, including my own. But in the by-elections that have been held, it's clear that he's able to take votes from both the ANC and the IFP. So our sense is that it's KwaZulu-Natal in particular is going to be a real force. Because again, Zuma himself is very much wrapped up in that ethnic identity and the state of KwaZulu-Natal. The only question is how many votes can they take, how much will they disrupt, and will they appear as a significant force in any other province? Indications suggest that they won't.
Okay, so if the ANC, as the call suggests, is the largest party by some way, but doesn't actually have a majority, how many other parties are big enough to likely to easily want to go into coalition?
Easily, the important line. No one wants to declare anything. We're going to get about the percent, and everyone was saying he was with the ANC, but for us. So at the moment, no one knows. I do know that the veteran team, that is the struggle stalwart of decades of struggle, have formed their own team within the ANC. They're very much pushing for an ANC Democratic Alliance coalition. And the argument there would be there's been such an appalling level of state capture and corruption, certainly recently under the ANC for the last 10 years. Getting in a coalition with a party that focuses very much on governing, delivering, and managing could only do good things for the ANC, like Australia was told. If the ANC would decide to go to a coalition with the Economic Freedom Party, I think most people's sense is that corruption would once again run rampant, and it would be a very easy game for the market from the
The other thing is the South African president was actually elected by the parliament. Consequently, you don't have a majority, you don't necessarily get your president.
You're right, the majority party is the president, so it's a large party being a minority, so then he could be voted down unless they had lined up. So I think there's a bit sensible entity if they aim for 47, 48%. They only need to try and deal with a couple of 1% parties of them and get them in themselves. And they're in power for the next 5 years without having to make any major concessions on their policy basis. And I think that will why everyone else is hoping they're going to become more like 50% or some propaganda. Because then they will not be able to make up the gap with just more money if they give it up. They'll then have to engage within the budget. And that's when it gets
Let's talk about briefly about the voting. So, what do we know about voter registration and turnout, and also the likelihood of voters this time going to be voting on a significant voting difference?
We've had planning registration and voter turnout, frankly, ever since 1994. Voting doesn't seem to be particularly attractive or exciting to people, particularly to young people. Less than half the population is registered. And although turnout is generally fairly low, the elections don't are making it nicer for us who's heading towards our winter. So if it's a calm day, even though it's a public holiday, people are quite likely to stay at home in a warm bed rather than go to cast their vote. It's a debate we have here quite often, which is this voter apathy, or is this no one who's really offering enough to excite voters to get out of that warm bed and go and make their mark? Because my sense is that voters don't panic the party. So they may be angry with the aim. There's not enough to motivate them to go and vote. People vote out of hope. Someone has to galvanize them to go and put their mark against that party. The campaigns are only just getting going, so that may happen. But at this stage, it doesn't look particularly like.
So your feeling is rather than turnout, you would care to guess about that?
I wouldn't give a guess, but I don't see any reason at this point for it to be anything other than yet another no turnout.
But I absolutely would have thought, what would be your prediction for the outcome of this election?
Well, firstly, I deny everything I'm about to say. My sense is that the is going to come in around 47, 48. I think the Democratic Alliance is going to come in around 20 and the USS around 15. But my sense is the ANC will be able to stitch together a fairly safe coalition of two or three small 1% parties and have another 5 years, as I say, without having to adjust its policy.
Maybe they will. Okay, now let's find out why the ANC is seeing a decline in support, and whether that decline is likely to continue, and what it tells us about what's happening.
Survive anything.
Oh, you got caught.
I'm a mile from the centre, sprinting through woods on footpaths I've dug myself. I've been 1,000 times, and it always surprises me how dark it is. I can barely see 100 meters ahead. Branches slice my arms, pull at my shirt, cut my jeans as I pass the same point again. I must have taken a wrong turn. I only have a head touch, but I'm lost in the dark. I try not to panic. I try not to lose myself. That's such a stupid idea. I try not to think that I'm going to be burnt to bits or impaled on a branch that brings to life. I try not to think about the horrible irony of dying in trees I once superglued myself to, so they weren't torn down by bulldozers. But before my imagination runs ahead of me, light. There's light over there. I reach the gap between the trees and leap out of the dark, and before I realise where I am, I'm halfway through the big tree and I'm having half work of the swear. I pull my headphones down and I can hear this distant sound. I try to find the source of the noise. As I walk down the corridor, where is everyone? The emergency exits thrown open, the laptops abandoned. I enter the break room. It's come down to the laptop. Pick up the phone. Patient. It's an alert that sounded 16 minutes ago. I drop the phone and stagger to the car park. It's empty. Everyone's gone. I don't panic. I just feel like an idiot. Nobody thought to come and get me. Nobody thinks about the cleaner until they're sick on the carpet. A strap line in the middle of fields and farmland. Any route out is miles away. The path to the main road is a trek. I normally get the bus. I don't suppose any are running now. The meeting room's probably the best bet. I shut all the doors and I hide under the table. And as I sit alone, waiting for the missile, and then it's a trap. Funny what something like this gets to say. Over the last month, Adam's been quiet, like he's avoiding me. I've been serving something. And if I'm going to die, I want to know the truth. Realising a wooden desk probably wasn't going to save me from an explosion anyway.
I reckon most more intelligent people would run when security alarm goes off. But I couldn't help thinking that running off the shop after an alarm went off might seem suspicious. Maybe it's arrogance or stupidity, but after a moment of stunned fight or flight, the little voice in the back of my head tells me I can try and switch it off. I find the alarm console behind the till. I remember when I was in the conservation group, Sam used the same combination for everything. Padlocks on sheds, bike locks, everything. Only us lot in the group knew it. Had to be worth a go, right? The same combination for 15 years. Oh, that might be starts. What do you think? What do you think you're doing?
Adam left us on I open his earphones so to name. There's one with the subject.
Our on-site services.
It's a program cleaning agency. Scroll down.
You're currently in the cleaning agency staff. With restructuring, phasing out of our current on-site services.
Jen once told me I put too much of myself into this place. Maybe she was right. Because here I was, used and thrown away. Again. Horrible. Bloody horrible. The keyboard was still in my hands. Needing to set it over and over and I liberated cleaning too. Keys were flying. You know what? What? I hear Adam's stupid requests in my head.
We don't have my paper. Specific system.
Sounds like for a system. I turned to the filing cabinet next to me. I put my hand behind it.
I said, what do you think you're doing?
There's a man standing by the front door. He's an older guy, but he's big. Really big. He fills the entire doorway, arms folded, staring right at me. This must be Max from next door. But he doesn't know me, and he heard the alarm. I'm standing in the middle of a shop with my hands on the till.
I'm calling the police. What? They can get to the bottom of this.
Have you not seen what's happening?
Don't try and distract me.
There's an emergency alert out. Check your phone.
He checks. He hasn't got anything at all.
That's right.
He goes to dial the policeman, and that's when I hear it. From above, in the distance, this droning noise getting closer and closer. What it? This was it. If I'm honest with myself, I think the whole situation's got my head, so the idea of being bombed feels like a very real scenario all of a sudden. Adrenaline's coursing through my body.
What are you doing? Listen, I need you to move. Wait, absolutely not. We need to go now. I'm calling the police.
I tried to fight. I tried to flight.
Oh! Oh! Oh!
Looked at once in the public toilet, but when we rewilded it, we started our own secret side project. Woodlarks used to be more common in the UK. Numbers started declining after we lost habitats to farming and development and wildfires. But last year, we found nests in a rotten floorboard and kept coming back. The original pair returned in the spring and had 8 chicks this summer. They're fully grown now. The only people who know they're here are me and Phoebe. I don't know what's coming. A plague. This could be it. Go! Go!
Dave likes to sit out in the gardens during his break.
today is no exception.
Unhappy sandwiches from the Clinton Latin, letting the world go by.
Groups of stern-looking officers leap out of dark-windowed BMWs and head into the building.
He remembers one of them from a briefing a few weeks ago.
Can't remember his name.
A has passion, but struggles with details.
Whatever they're rushing in for, he looks serious.
A considered Steve's meeting them. Something they should sort that out. He unlocked his phone to make sure they hadn't taken the call.
Your account has been temporarily locked. To unlock your account, but Wayne ignores him, comes over the wall at once.
Some lots out.
Figure towers over him.
Excuse me.
A looks up. He knows security when he sees it.
Altos buses account. If it's fake, I'll call back to apologise. If not, I doubt it will be his top priority. Max can't win the chase, so I keep running towards that anyway. I'm a few minutes away when inevitably.
Hello? I'm gonna listen, I need to get home.
Stop panicking. It's a false alarm. You're fine. It's fake.
How do you know?
You questioning my sources?
I haven't.
Yeah, you'll get a message soon.
Yeah, how can I be sure?
You need to trust me. I promise.
Okay, well, thank you.
Right. I need a favour from you now.
Now?
Yeah, that's how it works. I do a favour, you do one for me.
Just leave it.
We're running with it. The story, your story. We're a barber in the home office, guess that ducks there.
Wait, Christy.
We need to act fast. You're my man on the ground, and I need to footage ASAP.
Not sure if I can.
Empty streets, shopping carts pushed over, that sort of thing.
Sure, but
I don't think you understand. You do this, I list you as a key contributor, maybe even correspondent from Brookmere.
what do you need?
I'll text you the details.
I've got my MP3 player to the camera on it. If I'm going to be obliterated, I'd like to pick the music. Sarah Whitehall at the wall, / photo frames and top toilets with confidential waste. It's like my own private rage room. And I've got a fire extinguisher. Like home, smell of a graveyard. Some of it sticks to the ceiling to the sky. Watching fall, like a terrible snow. It's beautiful. I've always wanted to do this. The birds flap up into the sky. They're gone. Phoebe told me went out over Brooklyn. There was the whole world to see. I told her, we never talk about you keep it going. This was fun. I stumble out the hut to cross the river. I'm so pretty tired. My leg finally gains feeling and explodes in agony. Oh, everything goes fuzzy. Strings break and the ground rushes up to meet me. After 2 of the 4 seasons, I run off the foot and decide hiding might actually be a good idea. But my phone goes again. I've lost it somewhere underneath an avalanche of paper and furniture, so it takes me a minute to find it. Oh.
Hey, this is Scorpius.
He sits in front of a panel of people.
He has to hold his hands behind his back to stop them shaking.
They ask him what he did exactly.
He did what they trained him to.
They don't believe him.
They asked him why he chose Brookmere.
He says he had to select a real location and it's near the top of the list.
A doesn't even know Brookmere either.
They don't believe him.
They asked him if he knew he'd sent a real alert.
A has no idea what they're talking about.
Alert trains from space.
They don't believe him.
He says they should check his computer. There had to be an error.
They tell him they don't make errors. Not like this.
A says his colleagues can back him up.
But his colleagues have been spoken to and twisted on. But they weren't sure what happened.
One of them had mentioned A took pills and expressed concern to his line manager.
They tell A that they've looked at his files.
Passionately. Blur his vision.
Secretary knocks. Ministers are demanding answers.
He's led out of the room and down the corridor. Another round of questioning.
arm. Dad probably slept through the whole thing anyway. That's what he'd do.
Dad.
No response.
Dad.
The quiet is odd.
Oh my God, Dad. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
A role in the outbreak of consciousness. And bodies in the street. Clocks are ticking, sparkling. I try to cry. I'm waiting, but nothing comes. Little specks circle above me. I avoid movers driving back to the centre. I take the forest route back to the village. I'm halfway in when I come to the bridge. There's a woman on the path. Hello? Are you alright? You're covered in mud, lovely. Let's look.
喂，轉入嚟，轉坐入嚟，拜拜。
Your mum came to my son. She's a wonderful. Hang on,
Oh, bye-bye.
the bob beyond there. It's over. Did you get the message? Look. There. There is no missile threat or danger to Buckmere. False alarm. Did you get one? I've had others, but I've been holding it together since there's no use getting all upset. Let's get you home. Come on, I told you. No, I felt my ankle. Tag. Oh dear. Is it bad? I don't want to look. Oh, I'm sure it's strange. Hi. Very strange.
Hello.
I think we should call for help, don't you? Well, I'm not going to leave you in a mess.
細 B 同你阿爸一齊。
嚇？
細 B 同你阿爸一齊。
係啊。
He tried to barricade himself in with his leg, couldn't move. I get off the floor, try to explain, but I've never seen him like that.
呢個咩節目？
I move into a chair, breathe and try to explain again.
講嗰啲人生難題啊？
嚇？
講人生難題啊？
邊個？
呢個節目咯。
呢度？
係啊。
冇聽。
The false alarm, I promised. I sit and look at Dad as he sleeps. The first time I've seen him like this. So vulnerable. I don't know what else hasn't he told me. What else has happened to him? Avoiding me. And I feel these tears rolling down my face. Incredible life. All stressed.
頭先細 B 真係喊到好凄涼。我知你話。
佢之後佢又整啊嘛，又攞啊嘛，跟住細 B B
嚇，
跟住咁樣。
What I know is okay. I make an excuse to go to the shop and get out. Sam's not really understanding the car, so I go to the garage.
我嗰日同哥哥講咧，我同佢講話，我為食啲食飯咧，佢撩晒啲飯出嚟，跟住之後你做咩咁撩晒啲飯出嚟？跟住我同哥哥講話，跟住細 B B 就喊，跟住我話he wants to make you guilty 咁樣。
make you guilty。
即係佢好似類似咁嘅意思，即係佢話哦，即係佢佢唔知講咗句乜嘢嘅，跟住然之後就佢咁樣喊就令到你覺得 guilty 咁樣，即係令到佢唔開心咁樣。
即係你唔應該咁鬧我嘅，我咁得意。
kind of 嗰啲哥哥，跟住我想哇，哥哥你即係
同佢
睇咁睇得透。
細 B B。
係啊。我都已經同你講嗰條棉花，佢攞咗佢就會整爛，跟住咬碎晒，然之後吞落個肚度㗎啦。
We bundled Sam in boxes and headed to hospital. Nobody talks. How much will
Sam, I need to. There was at the shop. I think it's fine now.
all the time?
What?
You miss the contract and nothing goes.
Rolling news, silent affairs on TV.
佢仆埋唔望你喎。
嚇？
佢仆埋喺個地度唔望你喎。
我哋睇緊頭先。
係啊。
我頭先以為你有睇嗰皇帝嗰啲又有 B B 喊。
哦，唔係啊。佢見到你個樣咁樣，跟住面口唔好，跟住佢又再仆埋。哦，再仆埋。哇！俾我爸聽到一定即刻衝落嚟啊！細佬做咩事啊？咁樣。跟住嚟公公道啊嘛。有冇俾你阿爸睇？
未。
其實我唔信佢呢個，我冇覺得快啲。
哦係咩？咁你覺得點行？
照直行咯，直衝。你睇下呢度得幾耐？
點算？
炸咯！
即係直去。
因為你行唔到兩架車，你又要等下一轉。
即係直去咁轉翻過嚟。
嗯。你仲有冇飲茄汁水啊？冇啊。
你講咩？
冇再飲茄汁水啊？
唔記得咗，唔記得。
You hurt? Looking for someone. I was in an accident during the incident. I thought they'd be here. I think someone broke into the office during the incident. They didn't take anything. All they did was search your name into my computer, break a keyboard and trash the office.
This is our.
No. My office has CCTV.
廣播劇嚟㗎。
You have no idea how hard it is to get everything that's going out the car.
You need to worry about that.
No,
I wanted to wait till everything's certain.
you mean it's information?
You don't understand me. I want you to help me manage the centre. Not clean it. The centre management. I told you, I need you.
Wait, let me get all.
I assumed you'd gotten out. You always know what to do. Things will change fast. Leave your mark, man. Properly.
Would you like that?
It's better paid. You don't have to wear the overalls. You can wear them.
Yes. Oh no. Why don't you wait for me? I could use that.
Hey, just head down to the bus stop.
He notices a couple staring at him. I think it's too long.
What would they?
No. How could they possibly know?
Social media, isn't it?
All they need now is him.
It'll go away.
That's what Harry tells himself.
I'm really not impressed with you. When you're back, can you travel my phone phone it?
Hello?
Anyway, listen, there's been a leak. You know who sent me a
你知唔知貴正和？有冇聽過？
貴正你？
貴正和。
貴正和？
貴正和。
貴正和？
係。
鬼嘢嚟㗎！乜鬼嘢嚟㗎？
日本嘅漫畫家。
跟住咧？
有冇聽過？
冇啊！
有冇聽過電影少女？
嚇？
電影少女。
電影少女冇。
Eyes。Eyes。 中意睇，佢中意畫嗰啲女仔畫得好靚，跟住咧，即係少年漫畫裡面嘅嗰啲嗰個即係畫靚女嘅第一代表人物啊，跟住成日整啲劇情話啊，佢中唔中意我咧？中唔中意咧？中唔中意咧？之類嗰啲，跟住之後睇翻其他嗰啲咧漫畫，即係少年漫畫，跟住有啲人就話少年漫畫喺度一個 chapter 喺度話佢中唔中意我，中唔中意我？少女漫畫咧就已經做咗唔幾多次。
哦，係啊，已經發生咗好多事。
The doctors give me meds for my ankle and suggest a check-up in a week. I come back to Noel, sitting next to him with his thing. I reckon he wants to see me. He didn't see me, and I expect some kind of shouting match, but he launches into how incredibly sorry he is for what he did, and that he wants to pay for anything he needs to cover. That's a trouble for Samuel's cardboard. Matt is outside saying someone tried to rob us, but he managed to scare him off.
你覺得你會唔會去都睇過？入去睇下有冇下邊位？
陣間啊，
After a
收工
much
我就
needed
哦。
shower, sit in the kitchen, enjoying the silence. I've been attempting to drown a phone out in my rise slowly before the shop.
Oh.
But it does the trick.
Make up your mind.
Voicemails from mum and dad and school. Phoebe. Down there.
咁樣開心啲嘛？
哦，睇下幾多樣？邊度有咁多樣？
佢枕住日日都喺度喎。
話咩？哦，好多樣。以前有冇？
佢應該可能係呢一期食草食到呢一塊時間。
In emergency alert, ballistic missile inbound by Dan Scott. Noel was played by Dorothy Atkinson. Sam by Anna Spearpoint, and Hassan by Hassan Dixon. Adam was Ian Lovett Jr., and the two narrators were Rhiannon Meeks and Joel Lightning. The director was Toby Swift. It was a BBC audio production for Radio 4.
BBC News at 3 o'clock. The new Welsh Labour leader, Ian Gethin, has been elected First Minister of Wales. The 50-year-old who replaced Mark Drakeford is the first black leader of any European country. Mr. Gethin told the Senate it was a daunting responsibility.
呢個咁樣擺喺度嘅話，點睇？有盤佢條豬遮住咗。
佢俾條柱車遮住咗，但起碼佢唔危險先啦。你諗下上次我塊牌，我上次唔知揸到咪某一處，跟住我要轉彎嘅，跟住但係嗰塊牌就喺我嗰塊面前面啊，即係我要轉右邊，
哦，
但係嗰塊牌就啱啱喺我呢邊前面，就係咁樣咯，係危險啊！係危險啊！佢嗰塊牌最多都睇唔到啫。你話我覺得啱唔啱？點解？
佢阻住你睇。
佢喺我塊面前面，大佬嗰塊牌。
The Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has made a surprise announcement that he's stepping down and also giving up the leadership of the governing Fine Gael party. Mr. Varadkar said his decision was both personal and political, and he believed a new leader would be replaced.
我見到你架車係一開頭9點嗰陣試一試 MOT fail 咗，即係整咗唔知咩，跟住就發布咗。
哇，係咩？佢冇同我講喎，整咗啲咩？
佢唔會同你講。
佢唔會同我講。
佢應該同你佢，不過佢可能唔知喎，唔知整咩，我記得。睇下佢使咩嚟收錢，可能唔收錢。
咁佢如果有嘢整，佢要收錢，佢咪會同我講聲先。
不過你有 service 嘅話，佢會收埋 service 先。
拜拜。
拜拜。
In half an hour, we're working on a project in Northern Ireland that aims to do just that. And the arrival of spring equinox may help to lift the spirits. So, how do the seasons affect our moods, thoughts, and hormones? All in your mind, is it? The first is some financial positivity. Hopefully, it's time for Moneybox Live with Felicity Hanna.
We're always positive. Hello, there are some just underlying, totally cold. More importantly, turmoil. Yes, the turbulence that continues. Mortgage customers face rising rates, vanishing deals, and a growing number of customers keen to pay and what on earth is happening next. We've got experts ready to answer your questions and respond to your comments. So get in touch with me now. The email address is moneybox@bbc.co.uk, or if you're on the platform X, we are @moneybox. Before we meet today's experts, let's hear from our own Chris. He's been out to Bristol asking people there how they're coping with their mortgage costs.
So I went from £700 a month to £1,500. I'm not on a fixed because I thought I'd ride it out, but I'm on a 7% mortgage one. That was October for me, so last few months. And with my bills on top, I'm paying out about £2,000 a month. Everything's just extortionate.
5-year fixed rate. I've only just literally had a mortgage about 2 months before August 22 mortgage explosion, so I'm alright. And so you're reasonably comfortable with where you are? Reasonably happy. Three and a half years left to hope that the rates come down, but it's still going to be a 2% increase on what I have.
I have got a mortgage, but I took mine out in 2022. So I was lucky. It was just before it all went pear-shaped.
What are your thoughts about mortgage payments? Not necessarily just for you, but about people you might know. Do you think struggling with mortgages is going to get more common?
I think nowadays it will unfortunately get more common due to the cost of everything else. So people are going to have to choose. And sometimes you've got to put food on the table, what you need to pay for heating, you've got your outgoings, and sometimes I think it's more than down to 3.4, which is really encouraging. And my expectation is, and I'm echoing back to what we said earlier, is jumping, going in the direction, the right direction, but we're not there yet. So I think the expectation is that we'll see a hold on interest rates tomorrow, but there might be some Now, arrears are rising. There's growing concern about people struggling to meet their mortgage costs. Interest rates are at the highest level for over 60 years. Charlotte, you know what I have to ask you. Skipton offers a 100% mortgage deposit-free mortgage. Does that put people at risk?
So yes, we do. We are very proud that we offer a 100% deposit-free mortgage. And the key thing, anybody that's borrowing, so whether or not you're borrowing at 100% or at 60%, you are borrowing a sizable debt. And the key thing for any lender, Skipton included, is that we assess affordability on that and we make sure that that's really responsible lending. If I look at our track record mortgage, our zero deposit mortgage, we add additional wraparound around that, which is you have to demonstrate that you've been paying rent increases or more than what your mortgage payment will be. So the many customers that are currently renting, they're really struggling to save, they desperately want to get onto the property ladder. Rents have increased 9% year on year. They're wanting to have some control and certainty over that. I think that's a fantastic solution for them, and we absolutely ensure that we assess all elements of affordability and they can demonstrate it through their rental experience.
Thank you. Richard, this morning the Office for National Statistics revealed the average UK private rent price increased by 9% in the 12 months to February. Now, we'll talk about struggles to raise a deposit for a flat rate later, I'm sure, but that must be causing renters real financial pain.
Unfortunate exceptions, we're not surprised to hear that. Overwhelmingly, the clients who come to us are actually in the private rental sector, and they've had a really tough few years. We're seeing record price rises, and often people spending more on their rent than they would do if they were lucky enough to be able to have a mortgage. So they're actually worse off from renting. They're not being able to build up any equity or any capital of their own. The other thing that's really important to recognise is that lots of times if you're falling behind in the private rental sector, you have far less protection than you would if you had a mortgage as well. You know, if you fell behind on a mortgage, you probably have a relatively good degree of confidence. You could have a chat with your mortgage provider. They'd be able to provide some support or maybe look to extend the term of your mortgage. Often people in the private rental sector, when they fall behind, face eviction very quickly and a lot of uncertainty and instability that comes with that.
Absolutely. Right, so let's go back to mortgages though. Bank of England data shows the number of...
By the end of Friday, it will be a cooler for all. Take us into a chilly weekend with sunshine, fluffy showers, and back and wintry on the hills. Tonight, it looks like rain will clear most of northern and eastern England to be the mostly dry night, variable clouds, some clearer spells at times. So temperatures will take a bit of a tumble compared to last night, when it was quite mild. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, it's really been getting better. So tomorrow, Scotland, Northern Ireland, a windier day, quite gusty, 40 to 60 mile an hour gusts there. Rain at times, a little bit of sunshine to England and Wales, mostly dry, very mild again.
Thanks, Dan. I was the director of Scotland Market. Yes, editor.
BBC News at 6 o'clock. This is Caroline Nichols. Inflation is down its lowest level in almost 20 years. Labour insists people are still struggling, but Rishi Sunak says the economy's green shoots of recovery will be seen by all.
We're delivering on the economy. It's a plan that is working. That's a word for economic moment now after the shock of the past year. If we stick to our plan, I can deliver what we want and start easy.
Princess of Wales has found to sack staff reports they tried to access her private medical information are confirmed. The High Court has held that Rupert Murdoch knew about her access to British newspapers long before he denied it in public. Wales has a new leader, while Ireland's Prime Minister announces his surprise resignation.
I look forward to standing up for Wales and the leaders, the countries and others to come after 7 years of office. I don't feel like the best person for that job anymore.
Also tonight, junior doctors in England will back for industrial action. HMRC has performed this computer and plans to close a telephone helpline. The Crown leads the way with the package of legal regulations. The latest figures on the economy show that price rises slowed down. Inflation has
terms of culture, types of Mary Water and such before, sometimes I just don't even like
council tax, law land, so everything's gone up significantly.
Rents too, 1%. While many consumers operate to cover further rising bills, such as mobile phone tariffs and toilet costs. The persistence of overall service inflation, which remains above 6%, has concerned some of the Bank of England. For its role is not just to bring inflation down to target, but to keep it there in the longer term. Rate changes take a while to make an impact, and its caution means that economists continue to predict that the first cut in interest rates won't come until the summer. Rishi Sunak has been addressing his backbenchers at a meeting in Westminster this evening, urging them to turn their fire on Labour after a flurry of speculation he could be ousted as Tory leader. The party spokesman said the MPs would be encouraged by today's inflation numbers, as the economy was very important to Conservatives. Here's our political correspondent, Harry Farley.
As spring appeared to arrive in Westminster today, Rishi Sunak was looking to put the winter blues behind him. It's been a difficult couple of weeks for the Prime Minister, with speculation about his leadership and arguments about racism in the Conservative Party. The economy and the cost of living will be a key battleground in the upcoming general election campaign, and today's faster than expected fall in inflation, he said, showed his plan was working.
The last couple of years have clearly been difficult, not just in the UK, but we've dealt with COVID, recovering from COVID, then we got hit by a war in Ukraine and the impact on energy bills. But I do believe that at the start of this year, we have turned a corner after the shocks of the past few years, and we are in a new economic moment, and 2024 will prove to be the year that the economy bounces back.
Labour said while the fall in inflation was welcome, years of Conservative government had left people worse off. The Shadow Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds said people were still facing difficult times.
They are seeing prices in the shops still rising, still significant. The tax burden is still high. If you are renewing your fixed rate mortgage, you're almost certainly going to be paying more than the deal you were on. So times are tough for people, and I think, to be honest, people recognise that when inflation was rising, the government said nothing to do with them. Now it's coming down, they take all the credit. I think they see through that.
At Prime Minister's questions today, Sir Keir Starmer claimed Rishi Sunak's entire focus was on stopping his MPs holding the sword of Damocles over his head, perhaps even literally. That's a reference to the Commons leadership candidate and important encourages the state to the Prime Minister went to quash speculation about his leadership of the party. He arrived to prolong the cheering.
The House of Lords has inflicted further defeats on the government's flagship Rwanda bill. Peers are voting this evening on up to 7 motions to change the legislation, which declares that the East African country is a safe place to send migrants who arrived in the UK on small boats. Rishi Sunak said he wants the first deportation flights to take off by the end of the spring. Here's our political correspondent, Peter Sorby.
On Monday, the House of Commons overturned 10 changes made to the Rwanda legislation by the Lords earlier this month. Peers have now begun to fire their return shots. The first government defeats this evening, while comfortable, have been smaller than before, and with ministers in no mood to compromise, the Lords is eventually expected to fold. So the question is when, not if, the game of parliamentary ping-pong will end. Labour and crossbench peers have tabled 7 different motions, including a proposal to ensure the Rwanda policy complies with domestic and international law. Others would prevent children and people who fought alongside British armed forces from being deported to the East African country. Speaking for the government, Lord Stewart urged peers to respect the will of the elected chamber.
We must do what we can to prevent any more lives from being lost at sea. Our laws neither can we allow our asylum and legal systems to be overwhelmed, our public services to be stretched, the British taxpayer to continue to fund millions of pounds spent every day on hotel costs.
But Labour's Home Affairs spokesman, Lord Croker, accused the government of completely ignoring the concerns of peers
Ray, the government lectures us about constitutional conventions, and we've said all along, and I repeat here, that it's not our intention to block the bill, but it's also part of constitutional convention that the other place reflects on what your lordships have said and just doesn't carte blanche reject them.
The Lords have questioned the legality, cost, effectiveness and morality of the scheme, but the most pressing issue for the government now is to ensure flights actually take off. Rishi Sunak's rather vague deadline of sometime in the spring still appears achievable. But Lord Coker also claims that a government plan to schedule the next round of Commons votes on Monday had been shelved, meaning the legislation wouldn't be passed in time for Parliament's Easter break. Many Conservatives are clinging on to the hope that the sight of planes heading for Rwanda will help to revive their party's fortunes. But that might come too late for the Prime Minister's next big test, the local elections in England at the start of May.
The private hospital at the centre claims that staff attempted to access the Princess of Wales's medical records has said there's no place for those who breach the trust of patients. The Daily Mirror has reported that a £1,000 donation from a company whose owner was prosecuted for illegally dumping waste.
啱啱過嚟，翻嚟嗰時見到你講呢個好差咁讀。
Get to grips with the prevailing problems of record hospital waiting lists, poor performance in Welsh schools, and an economy still struggling to move on in Wales' industrial path.
The Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has announced he's stepping down as Taoiseach and leader of Fine Gael. Speaking of it, he said that being Taoiseach had been the most fulfilling time of his life, with Ireland becoming a more equal and modern place, including for women and LGBT people. His departure does not automatically trigger a general election, as our Ireland correspondent Jennifer O'Neill reports.
At midday today, Leo Varadkar made a seismic political statement in Dublin. Less than a year from an Irish general election, he announced that he is not the man to lead his party into the campaign. Becoming emotional at points, he cited personal and political reasons for stepping down, saying that after 7 years in office, he no longer felt he was the best person for the job.
I know this will come as a surprise to many people and a disappointment to some, and I hope at least you will understand my decision. I know that others will, how shall I put it, hope the news just fine. That is the great thing about living in a democracy. There's never a right time to resign my office. However, this is as good a time as any.
Leo Varadkar's resignation came as a shock even to cabinet colleagues. It has long been a politician to act on his own terms. Openly gay and half Indian, he came to embody the liberalisation of a once socially conservative Catholic country, with a reputation for being outspoken, perceived by some as arrogance. One of his biggest challenges was steering Ireland through Brexit negotiations, which at times fractured relations between London and Dublin. On paper, at least, the Irish government can run until this time next year. But Sinn Féin, Ireland's largest opposition party, is already calling for an election. Michelle O'Neill is Sinn Féin's deputy leader and Northern Ireland's first minister. They're very getting there to be an election. It's not a time for a real income deputy. And ultimately it's for the people to decide who will be the leader. So I think it's now the people that should be an election. People should have a chance to pass the verdict. In a statement, the Prime Minister said he wished Leo Varadkar well and would work closely with his successor.
You're listening to the 6 o'clock news on BBC Radio 4. The main news so far. Inflation fell to 3.4% last month, its lowest level in more than 2 years. The hospital where staff were reported to have tried to access the private medical records of the Princess of Wales
唔去啊！你問媽咪睇下媽咪佢食咩啊？
Still to come, the final series of The Crown has the most nominations for this year's Best TV Awards. Junior doctors in England have voted to stage more industrial action in their long-running pay dispute. The doctors' union, the British Medical Association, said it now had a mandate for a further 6 months of strikes and called on the government to come forward with what it said was a credible offer.
真係咁啦！如果成個大陸好啊，跟住嗰個禮拜就好非常之。嚇！我幫佢講過。
Yes, you did. You said tomorrow we'll have McDonald's.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Today. And today is tomorrow.
爸爸聽住細啲點去啊？唔識啊？而家問翻你先好冇？
So, less than 24 hours on, reversal, described by Labour as a U-turn of extraordinary speed and indignity. The helpline will stay open. A plan to restrict the hours of the VAT helpline and refuse refund calls on the pay-as-you-earn phone line will also be shelved for the time being. Executive of HMRC, Jim Parrott, says the pace of change needs to match the public's appetite for managing their tax affairs online. Authorities' challenge now is to reduce call waiting times while improving online services sufficiently to make them an attractive option for people who otherwise would ring up.
A man who poisoned a couple with fentanyl before changing their will to make him a director of their company has been convicted of murder. Chelmsford Crown Court had that Luke DeWitt, 34-year-old IT worker, created a series of fake online personas to manipulate Stephen and Carol Baxter before he killed them. The couple, who were in their 60s, were found dead at their home in West Mersey, Essex, in April last year. DeWitt will be sentenced on Friday. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he's approved the operation operational plans for a ground offensive in the city of Rafah in southern Gaza. President Biden had urged Israel to call off an assault in the area where 1.5 million civilians are sheltering. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is visiting the Middle East in the hope of securing a ceasefire, which is being discussed in Qatar. Our correspondent in Jerusalem, Mark Lewin, reports.
As Gaza's nightmare drags on towards its 6-month mark, the prospects for peace are dimming further by the day. A senior Hamas official said Israel's response to the latest ceasefire proposal discussed in Doha was generally negative and a step backwards. And again, Israel's Prime Minister said he will expand the offensive into Rafah, where an estimated 1.5 million people are sheltering. Benjamin Netanyahu said he had approved the operational plan for the southern Gazan city and would soon greenlight proposals to evacuate civilians, but added it would take time. It has prompted international condemnation and worsened the increasingly acrimonious relationship with the United States. It's likely to be at the centre of talks with Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, who will stop in Israel on Friday on a previously unscheduled leg of his latest Middle East trip. His aim to restrain Israel's leader, who seems intent on fighting on in the war and for his political survival.
And News have challenged the BBC's Director General about online comments from corporation staff which they believe are pro-Hamas. Tim Davie told the Commons Media Select Committee that some of the posts on